talk Cocaine Shark. Of course, after the moderate success that was Cocaine Bear, we got a slew of B-movie knockoffs, including this one, but it's not the only one. There are a couple of others as well. And in a kind of shark-filled B-movie kind of plethora of movies, and there's a whole bunch of these still come out this year, of course we had to have Cocaine Shark. So this was inspired, of course, by Cocaine Bear. This was a higher budgeted movie, although it's still relatively low budget, around 35 million for kind of Hollywood standards. But it kind of set the internet ablaze when it was kind of like in production and prior to it coming out. But in reality, this movie wasn't a particularly big success. As I've mentioned, the production budget of Cocaine Bear was around $35 million, and it only actually did about $87 million worldwide. And that production budget, you've got to factor in marketing and the cut the cinema takes as well. So it probably maybe broke even, and that was about it. So it's not as if these movies are coming off as a huge kind of success. It was pretty much a kind of somewhat of a none of it. Maybe it didn't tank, but it was not exactly a a box office darling, you might say, albeit it got a lot kind of internet buzz. But nonetheless, these B-movie houses have knocked out these kind of knockoff versions, including Cocaine Shark. Now this is directed by prolific B-movie director Mark Polonia. He brings his recognisable cadre of actors he uses in every film, including Titus Himmelberger, Jeff Kirkner, etc. And I suspect, this is going to be a little bit of speculation on my part, this movie was never produced initially as a Cocaine Shark. I suspect it was produced as just a kind of monster shark movie that was kind of tweaked to try and cash in on the media attention, at least, as Cocaine Bear was kind of being put out. And I'll explain a little bit why that is in just a moment. But let me give you the brief story synopsis here. Before I go into that, it is a very, very low budget movie. If you're not familiar with Mark Polonia movies, it is very low budget we're talking here. So it focuses on a cop who is investigating a sort of drug manufacturing gang, and they have produced this drug which is made from kind of shark DNA, and it's a powerful hallucinogenic drug, and a kind of byproduct of this is this kind of like mutated shark. In the story, it does make mention of other monsters as well, and that it sort of plays a part in this film. So we have this kind of, primarily this kind of crab shark that is out there, and in 1 minute it's in a tank, and the next minute it's in the kind of the open water. Doesn't mention how that got in there, whatever. And it's essentially about Titus Himmelberger's character trying to kind of bring down this drug gang at the end of the day. Not really about this shark, I will specify that. So what do we think about Cocaine Shark? Okay, so Mark Polonia is quite well known for using stop motion, and it's a technique which isn't used much these days in kind of Hollywood, even in kind of low budget circles. It's obviously a technique that was used in the past with great effect back in the kind of like the pre-CGI and even kind of like even to a degree pre-practical effects days. But Mark Polonia still uses it for his kind of like monster effects and things like this, and it's kind of fun. It's I have to be honest with you, it's silly and it looks kind of crappy, but I've got to say I still somewhat enjoyed the kind of the stop motion effects for this kind of like this crab shark monster hybrid, which was kind of quite fun. I suppose the movie does try to have somewhat of a twisting narrative. It has kind of like non-linear storytelling where we see Titus Himmelberger's character in a hospital bed trying to recount the events that have happened to him, and it's ultimately about his trying to, he's a kind of cop on the edge who is hard living and kind of pill popping, etc. And he's trying to kind of infiltrate this kind of gang and etc. and bring them down from the inside. And that's the bulk of the story. So I kind of, maybe it's an idea here that they try to have more of a cop kind of action movie with just a hint of monster in it. And, that's really what the bulk of the story is about. But I appreciate them to try and have a little bit more of a kind of a somewhat of a complex narrative. We'll see how that works in just a minute. So, but that's, to be honest with you, outside of a cool poster and a cool name, there's very little else I can say in the positive about this movie. Okay, so let's discuss what I think does not work. Now, I'm going to have some speculation. As I mentioned, I actually don't think this movie started life as a cocaine shark movie, because it doesn't have anything to do with cocaine. It doesn't really follow that kind of like that template where we have an animal kind of, you know, finding drugs out in the wild and kind of going on a rampage. That doesn't happen. This shark creature was the result of kind of genetic meddling and things like that, and it has really nothing to do with kind of the concept that was set out by Cocaine Bear. And I feel this movie has been kind of re-edited and kind of like a few scenes with kind of like stock footage and kind of like voiceovers are there going to put in to try and kind of make it seem like more of a cohesive narrative. But I don't think this movie, in my opinion at least, started out as a kind of a mockbuster at least. So that is my speculation, and I'll be curious to see what you think about that. But the problem is this movie is all over the place in regards to plot. It is a very overly convoluted plot made by filmmakers who probably have a no more than a few $1,000s budget, probably, you know, filming on kind of camera phones and things like this, with kind of subpar actors, with poor characterization. So you can kind of imagine the mess that this movie ends up in, because it's, like I've said, I probably think it started out as a crab shark movie, but then was just kind of like co-opted to try and gain the kind of like the exposure that it's going to be being called Cocaine Shark is going to get. So just narratively, it's just a mess. It's just all over the place. You can't follow where it's going. The storytelling is so choppy. The acting is so poor. You know, it's just a complete kind of like incomprehensible mess of a film. So, you know, should you watch it really? Well, if you're a kind of a B-movie fan and you want to watch it for an ironic watch, then knock yourself out. I mean, like, I quite appreciate the kind of the cheesy stop motion effects, but they are pretty crappy. But to be honest with you, those type of effects are pretty good compared to some of the actual practical kind of effects that we see for more close-ups and stuff, where we literally see like paper mache sharks with kind of cardboard teeth and things like this. And to be honest with you, our crab shark creature maybe gets 60 seconds of airplay within this movie. It's not in there much. It doesn't really do anything. This crab shark creature doesn't really have a lot of impact on the plot. It's not really the main point of the movie. The main point of the movie is this kind of like this drugs gang and the kind of the interaction with this kind of undercover cop. And this kind of creature just happens to be out there, but it doesn't really have any impact on the actual story. In actual fact, you could take it out of the story and it really have no impact on the actual, what would happen to the actual plot outside of it kills one person, but even then arguably you could say something else would have happened. So it's really, as I say, a cocaine shark in kind of name only. If you're familiar with the cadre of actors that Polonia uses, I think Titus Himmelberger is somewhat watchable, I would say, but a lot of the other cast here are just poor. The kind of like the production is clearly very kind of quick. Thankfully, it's a relatively kind of short running time. I mean, Polonia movies, they are very kind of have a similar feel to it, and this is very similar to a lot of his movies. I mean, I often think what would happen with these kind of low budget, quickie filmmakers if they actually just took their time and tried to make a better product, and then instead of just trying to rush it out to try and co-opt a trend like Cocaine Bear. It would be interesting had they had a bit more budget, a bit more time, a bit more focus, what they would come up with. But that's not what happens. These low budget filmmakers, they have to bang out crap, and I have to kind of review it. And it's, you know, like I said, it's like, had this movie actually been about this crab shark, at least it might have been a bit more interesting. But it's mostly about this kind of like cop dealing with these kind of drug dealers with very kind of like crappy acting, very kind of poor setup, and a completely convoluted plot that is incredibly hard to follow because it's so poorly told. Overall, I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.